welcome, Benoit. It's very nice
Hey,
to have you for the interview for the festival.
thank
Um, well, I mean, it's a curious thing that this is not the first time we have a film from you in a festival. For the opening festival in 2012, we got your first one of your first ones, Unfinished Italy. And now we have the real thing, which seems to be like a continuation of these topics, exploring this topic, ideas of architecture. Um, so yeah, and together with that, we also have the VR experience. We will be released on the 28th of November, previous to the film, which is in 29th. It's a closing film, and we have some questions for you. So for people to understand a bit more about your work and how do you see your work and the experience through making these films and your trips, of course. I mean, there's a whole story behind the making. So let's start with the first question. So how would you describe the relationship between cinema and architecture from your perspective?
What is interesting is that uh, architecture can be a container of stories. I usually choose a place. It can be a square, or in that case, replicated architecture, replicas, and copycats, to try to see what story is born in there. And in that sense, architecture is a little yeah, container of stories, or is something that is um, that has a decorum somehow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decorum, and um, and what is interesting is that I think that when architects are projecting a place and a building or a house, they imagine uh, how will be the light in it, what will be the people doing in there, how will they can use it, and and how it will be transformed, or not transformed, but how it will live, also in terms of yeah, and I guess also that they have a sense of framing somehow. No, if you
Mm-hmm.
are sitting there eating, you have this view, and it's the same with us as filmmakers, as we can observe this reality and try to see also what I'm interested in mostly is how those places with time are getting transformed by by the people who live in there. So there is a relation between architecture and cinema, in that sense that uh, filmmakers can observe those theaters somehow of real life going on.
Theaters. So, and what do you think? Because yeah, it's clear that you have certain attraction to this topic. So you have come back to find out and to go beyond. And so, what do you think your work must be in a film, in a festival like the Film Fest in Santiago?
I'm very pleased and honored, by the way, to be able to screen my films in your festival, and I really thank you for allowing the film to be shown and seen by people. And but for me, um, the festival, the film festivals can give a better view to some films that are not so much proposed on TV, for example,
Mhm.
or so it's a very nice place to watch films that you usually don't really see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. and yeah, if you go to the very topic of the real thing, and how does a replica work from an urban and an individual level? Because you already mentioned that these replicas, or maybe in the beginning, it's unfinished architecture, and now this very well finished architecture, so a
Exactly.
replica from an urban and to an individual level. How do they work? Mhm.
My first film that was at the first edition in 2012 of Arc Film Fest, it was a film about unfinished buildings, and there I was very interested by observing how unfinished architecture are getting transformed by the people, and how an unfinished structure can become something else out of it, out of the like primary function. In this film, I was very curious to see that in a lot of countries around the world, there were replicas of very famous architectural landmarks. And my first interest was to understand how people who were living in these replicas are actually transforming those places with their own culture, customs, personal background, and cultural background. And I was curious to see. I live in Paris, and the first place I visited was this residential area in Hangzhou in China, which is a copy of Paris, of 30,000 inhabitants. And the first time I went there, it was a kind of déjà vu impression. But also I was very curious to see how people were living in there. And obviously the way they were living in Paris was not the same as the one I was living in Paris in France. So it was a kind of half déjà vu and half a dream. Like in a dream, you have this sensation that the things are not in the same place, and the dimensions of the thing are not the same. The colors of the doors are not the same, but you have the strange feeling of being at home without being there somehow. So I was very curious to see, how people were taking this architecture built 20 years ago, and how they what they were doing in there. And in fact, people are dancing in the streets at night, because it's a very common practice in China, especially for old people who come together and make physical activities like dance, and or playing cards and stuff like that. And so this was my first my first wish. Then, to answer to your question, how does a replica work? I would say that there are I saw that there were different and several types of replicas.
Okay.
The film is not taking care of replicas like Las Vegas, for example, because Las Vegas is a place which is more for casinos, and it's not. The film is not interested in the theme parks neither, because theme parks are more a place that opens in the morning and close at night. Those places, the replicas, are open, and it's a living place. People go and work there. They live there. There are schools, and so in these places, I wanted to observe what was going on there. So there are inhabited residential areas, and so this is the first and most important part of this phenomena. But you can also find political replicas, like, for example, the one we filmed in Ivory Coast, with the replica of St. Peter Church, which is the biggest church of the world, made more than 30 years ago, made for as somehow a demonstration of a demonstration of power, of the affirmation of something. So architecture, as we know, is a tool to affirm and to send messages sometimes, but the copy also can be. So this was another aspect. So one is for the first one, it was more a kind of economical replica, like residential areas. The other one is political, but there is also a third kind of replica in the film, which is more individual replicas, like people building for their own private use uh, some replicas, and it's the story of a man who built a fake or a copy of a Taj Mahal for his wife that died unfortunately, and he made this building for her memory.
But by gathering all these different ways of replicas, I think you're also trying to state something about our city. So what would you say is the message that the real thing is trying to communicate on the current state of our cities?
When I was doing the film, I was telling you, I went to China to this copy of Paris, and it was like a déjà vu somehow.
Mhm.
But this déjà vu was this feeling of being there without being anywhere. Um, was something that I was feeling also in my own city in Paris, in the original Paris. And why am I saying that? Because I'm saying that because in most of the cities, you will find we find uniformi uniformization of the public areas. The shops are the same. You've got a H&M, all
Starbucks.
this, yeah, a Starbucks everywhere. By the way, in Paris, in China, there was a Starbucks, and and somehow there is a kind of yeah, it's the theme that was explored by a French thinker called Marc Auger, and
Mhm.
he with the non-places, and it was, yeah, it's a little bit the sensation of, yeah, if you think about the pilot of aircraft, he will go to sleep in the same hotel room everywhere in the world and drink the same coffee everywhere in the world at the same shops, and having the sensation of being all the time in the same place, even if he moves from
Wow.
one place to another in terms of geography. And this was a reflection that was joining me during this the journey of making this film. It was this idea that we live more and more in a, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I have the impression that we live in more and more fake world, and that the places and the cities actually start to look a little bit the same, even if it's not everywhere and obviously all the time in all the streets. But this was a little bit the testimony of this feeling. And also I have to say that as a French Italian citizen, I live in Paris here, and here in Paris in France, and I was visiting this copy of Paris in China. And when I was coming back to Paris in France after the location scout, after the first shooting, I was walking in the street here in Paris, and I was thinking of my new friends and the protagonist of the film over there in China. And I was thinking, oh, now it's night and here it's day. It's like was a twin city, right?
Yeah.
And and what are they doing there, and what are we doing here, and what is different? I was looking for a difference in the similarities, and in the same, in certain way, I was going into the city center of Paris, in the historical center, and I was where there are a lot of tourists,
Mhm.
where mass tourism is
Mass
there
tourism.
and it's very
Exactly.
important, and many people taking picture. And I was thinking, it's interesting because we go, we visit places, we take pictures all the time of these cities, of these very famous architectural landmark, and it's always the same picture. It's something that we don't even really look at. It's something that we have to capture. So we travel,
Yeah.
we move from one place to another to, yeah, to make a virtual click and getting into a machine. And I was thinking maybe the original city is also becoming a little bit virtual, and and a little bit fake somehow. So it was
Yeah.
a reflection. Obviously, it's not. I'm not saying that it's a
So
huge
complete
truth what
situation.
I'm saying, but I don't know if you understand, but
Yeah, I know, I know.
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
No?
it's something that it's interesting. You mentioned Marc Auger and this idea of being somewhere but being in the same place, and this feeling that happens when you move within places that are being replicated so fast and so far. And but then you have what we have today. We have a crisis which does not allow us to transport ourselves even to a similar place, and this will change. I mean, we have felt the change. So, what would you say this is going to? How this is going to change our cities within this crisis? And considering the idea of replicas somewhere, and now you are just inside.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, and yeah, I think that it's very interesting because the phenomena, especially in China, can be interpreted in many ways. Uh, to stay with this idea of the copy, they made the copies also to give the possibility or to allow or to propose to people to visit an idea of Paris or an idea or vision, a picture of Venice, etc., without leaving China. Um, I don't know if this phenomena will continue, and if we will have the possibility to, if the cities of Europe, for example, or of America will Latin America will become like that. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to
Where they
be.
start uh, duplicating, replicating the interiors, just living in Venetian palazzos,
Exactly, exactly,
It looks
exactly,
like a normal house outside, and inside is something else, somewhere else,
exactly. But in Europe, we've been for during the whole 19th century. Uh, there was a very big, and also the 18th century, but the 19th century was very. There was this phenomenon of making small replicas or having small objects coming from very far away, and
Mhm.
we mostly from China or from Asia. And in French, I don't know how it is in English, but in French it's called chinoiserie.
The
Objects,
Chinese thing.
Chineseries.
Make it like the Chinese, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. So a cup of tea and small paintings, and people were collecting them to for the tea room, to create an idea of moving abroad.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so this was the phenomenon from the, yeah, mostly 19th century, and so we had it today in Europe, especially. Yeah, it's a shame to copy, and but yeah, somehow people I was encountering for the film were saying it was common use in Europe 1 century ago. So to tell you, yeah, to tell you the truth, just to implement, then you will cut where you want in this answer. But just to mention one more thing
Tell me.
uh, uh, about this crisis, and the fact that we can't move. I was very happy to make the VR version, the virtual reality version of the real thing. Also because the idea of uh, having the mask, the VR mask, and sitting here in Paris or wherever, and having the sensation or having this impression to be there without moving is exactly the same. It's
Yeah,
like traveling without moving.
you
And
anticipated the move, you may.
exactly. And the thing is that now with the crisis that we can't move, actually with cinema, and especially with VR cinema, 360-degree cinema, that you can look around and having this impression that you are there, was exactly the point of the film, that You're there, but you're also over there, and people over there are talking about.
So you created a replica of the replica.
Exactly, like a mirror. It's like a mirror, one in front of the other, two mirrors.
Yeah, two mirrors. That's super nice. And actually, I was something interesting that you mentioned this idea of copying the Chinese version of things, like in 19th century, and they did it at the time. We did it at the time. Now they do it today. But how do you see these two cultures? Let's say if you talk about cultures, Eastern and Western. Do you feel they are somehow diverging in their perspectives when it comes to city building or architecture in a specific case?
Honestly, I don't know. The only thing I can say is that talking with experts and researchers, and actually people that you're gonna see in the film, one urban planner, British urban planner who planned the urban planning of a city close to Shanghai. They were saying that the wish, especially in China, was to demonstrate that they can do it. They can make it as it is in the US or as it is in Europe. They can. It's in a way that these replicas are in a way a demonstration of we can do it. We can do it fast. We can use it as you're using it, and it's promoting not the original, or it's not promoting France or the US. It's promoting China's
power,
ability to make it fast and to make it good sometimes, and so this is what replicas are in China, especially.
That's interesting when you mentioned this idea of showing the rest of the world that we can do it. And I mean, you bring it, we make it. Doesn't matter.
We can make everything. Yeah.
We are seeing a transformation, obviously, and you have on one side the guys that are actually enabling this, probably the architects or the urban planners, as you say, because those are the guys that are worried about it has to be built like this because it looks like this, an architectural work. And on the other hand, you have someone like you, a filmmaker, that goes there and makes a testimony of this. But this transformation, somehow, it can be also that, as you mentioned, you walk through Paris and feeling like, am I here? Am I there? And does it produce a transformation on your own perspectives?
I think many things. I think that in a way the architect or the urban planner, but the architect who design and plan, especially in that case, the replica of Paris or Venice, or they probably imagine that people will use it as the way, like they will fit into this decorum as something that he already knows. What happens is that, and what I try to observe in this film is what happens 20 years later when this place is getting a little bit destroyed, a little bit used by the people. So how actually becomes a building that has been thought as like be used like this, but no, in the end people most of the time don't use it like this. They use it in a different way, and actually it gives birth of something completely unexpected. And this is the thing I'm looking for. I try to to be very careful of those details, because I think it's also funny to see how life gets everywhere. Not only humans, by the way, also plants and trees and animals, and how different cultures transform a place that is from its original design or wish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was the same for Unfinished Italy. Actually, it was unfinished building, so obviously the, the original use was not happening, but people were using those places and transforming them, and it's the same with replicas. So I'm not an architect. But what I can observe from my perspective is that and what I like to film is this always the presence of life and the transformation of things coming from the human beings and the people who use places.
Fantastic. Well, I think I run out of questions. So, but I would like to thank you for giving us this interview and for accepting to have you in the festival with your film and your VR experience. I think people will be very thrilled about the VR, so being there but not being there. That's the whole idea of it. So yeah, thank you very much, Benoit, and we'll stay in touch, of course.
We stay in touch, and thank you so much for having me in the festival.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.